This, my friends, is the Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. Of course, you knew that already because you're smart and intelligible people and you know motorcycles. But look closely. This is not any ordinary Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. This guy right here has been kitted out with pretty much everything under the Ducati catalog sun, let's say. Front to back, nothing has been left untouched, so let's just get right to it. Up front here, forged magnesium wheels. You have the carbon fiber brake ducts, even a carbon fiber cover for the dash. The usual winglets on the Streetfighter have been replaced with carbon pieces. You got the different levers. What else? Carbon plate on top of the gas tank here, a different gas cap, carbon frame cover, a dry clutch because any Ducati worth its salt needs to have a dry clutch. Akrapovic titanium racing exhaust, carbon heel guards, carbon exhaust cover, titanium foot pegs, adjustable in many different positions. Ducati calls this a racing seat. It's a taller, more padded seat. Racing seats are usually thin pieces, but whatever, let that one slide. You got these thin LED lights in the back. What else am I missing? Surprisingly enough, the suspension is not any special kit. This is the stock Öhlins electronic suspension on this guy. And yeah, you know, there's a lot of other things I didn't mention, but it's little small knickknacks kind of a thing, and it's really not super important. Those are the big pieces. The wheels, the exhaust, and the dry clutch alone, we're looking at retail price something over $14,000, and that's on top of the $25,000 it gets to buy the Streetfighter V4 S in the first place. So clearly, this bike here is a toy for people who don't care about money, and so let's not even bother talking about the price of all this stuff, because this is just a symbol of excess in every single way, and I am the lucky bloke who got to ride it. This is just what happens when people at Ducati figure, hey, let's just throw everything we got on this bike and see how cooler, is that a word? How much cooler we can make this thing. So yeah, here we are on the street. You know, this is a street fighter after all, so we had to go fight the streets on this bad boy. But I also took it on the racetrack, Button Willow Raceway, with our friends at Track Days with the Z. And for a quick blurb about how that was, here's my onboard footage. Oh, listen to that. Hear that dry clutch and that loud exhaust. And whatever. Oh, yeah. So fun. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, or something like that. This is not an accessory option, but the auto blipper on this thing is really good. I love auto blippers. Woohoo! Listen to that thing go. 2 quick downshifts, pardon me. Let's see what you got next. Let's see what we got here. Play it nice, cool. I've got horsepower on my side. Pardon me, buddy. Pop it in and fire it out. God damn, this thing moves. Where are you going, dude? Oh God, where are you going? I got to play motorbikes with Zach Quartz. Side stand for the win.
That first hairpin, like there was a little shitty pavement.
Yeah.
Coming out of there, every single time, man, black stripe all the way down. Like, I don't know if it's like slide control or just like next, but I was watching the bike was like 5 degrees out with like just a black stripe the whole way.
Who?
It was sick, dude.
Who?
You.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was watching, I'm like, just watching the stripe. I'm like, yeah.
Nice.
Whoa! I needed a GoPro for that one, man. It was like, second, you came past me. It was like someone in front of us, you came past. I was trying to stay out behind you, and then I just watched that strike.
Awesome. Okay, so if you didn't get it from that little clip, you could tell this thing is a beast. This is a monster, and not a Ducati monster, funny enough. The street impressions are no different. This is just so much motorcycle. It's just intense in every sense of the word. The moment you start the thing, you hear that dry clutch clack, 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 and you hear that Akrapovic exhaust just rumbling. It's loud, it's nasty, it's gnarly, it takes no prisoners, and like, you can't help but kind of feel your heart pumping when you hop on this thing and push the button and start it. That's the kind of attitude this thing gives off. And then riding this bike here in the canyons with the hillsides and the sound of this gnarly exhaust just like rumbling off the hills, bouncing back and forth. It's obnoxious. And sometimes that's good, but every time, meh, not so good. I'm sure my neighbors love me right now with how loud this thing is whenever I, pull up at home. It's a lot. It's a lot of motorcycle. This thing has been on the dyno. I have the dyno graph. I'll put it up on the screen now. 193 horsepower, I believe, but if you can see that graph, you might see some squiggles towards the upper end of the graph there. That's tire slip on the drum of the dyno. So that 193-ish number is actually low because the tire was slipping on the drum. We're probably looking at something closer to 200 horse, and that's just with pump gas. You don't need that much power on the street, on the track, or whatever, but it's nice to have, I guess, if you just love having excess. Again, that's kind of the key to this bike. If I could sum this thing up in one word, excess. But let's get back to like how everything else works around it. Yes, the exhaust is loud. Yes, the dry clutch is loud. Because of the dry clutch, you also have a heavy clutch pull, but you also have the auto blip up-down shifter. So really the only time you use the clutch is to leave from a stop. You kind of expect an exhaust to add power, and you're going to feel that power, and yes, absolutely, you feel that power on this bike. Maybe the bigger difference maker on this motorcycle is the magnesium wheels. Not that the stock wheels were anything to, sneeze at, but these magnesium wheels on this bike, it flicks noticeably quicker and lighter than before. And that was what surprised me was, yeah, I expected the bike to make power, and sure as hell does. I didn't expect the wheels to make that big of a difference. They are truly a difference maker for something like this. And it's, you don't expect to toss a bike like this around like a little bike, but you almost can. And these wide bars just make tossing it super easy. It's a bike that defies its weight, which it's amazing to say because it's a big bike. It's a lot to handle, but the combination of all this stuff is remarkable. And then on the racetrack, I did multiple sessions, almost the entire day's worth of riding. The entire session, the entire 20-minute session, multiple times a day. And I came back thinking, I'm not whooped after riding this bike. I can take a swig of water and pretty much be fine. Like, normally a 200 horsepower bike, you do a couple of sessions on it and you are just beat.
I think I'm gonna try and give Mr. Quartz a follow.
This, the entire day, ride it, get off of it, hop off of it, take a drink of water, and I'm pretty much good to go. The most difficult part is just hanging on because there is no wind protection here. There's nothing to shield you from the wind. So you're just hanging on for dear life. So especially like in fast corners, you're just trying to hold onto the bars because that wind is hitting you at such a rate of speed. But it's surprisingly not a difficult motorcycle to ride, even in the stock form. But now with all these upgrades made to it, it is surprisingly even more well-mannered, if that's a thing. These foot pegs are adjustable and they're at their lowest setting right now. I did find myself dragging my toes on the racetrack, and I don't normally drag my toes.
Pegs are in the low position, so they're touching down a little earlier than I'd like.
If this were my bike, I would raise them up a tiny little bit. On the street though, it's a super comfortable riding position. Those low pegs actually make that knee bend nice and comfortable. It's a comfortable reach to the bars. It sounds weird to say a bike this aggressive and mean is rather docile under just regular riding conditions. But I think that's the beauty of the Streetfighter, is if you want it to be a normal bike, it can be. If you want it to rip in your canyons and go destroy a racetrack, it can do that too. But just as a general platform, I've always appreciated what the Streetfighter V4 could do. This just kind of takes things to that next level, and I mean, holy moly, if you're made of money, a $40,000 Streetfighter like the thing you've seen in front of your eyes here, it's a pretty fun little ride. Yeah, as a symbol of success, this thing is it, and it's quite a gnarly thing to ride, but it works and it does it well. Pretty impressive. Really impressive, but I guess for that price you expect that. So anyway, those are my quick thoughts on this fully kitted out Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. If you feel like reading, which maybe you don't because you're here watching a video, but if you do feel like reading, go over to Motorcycle.com. I'll have a written version of my thoughts on this modified Ducati Streetfighter V4 S there. And I'm done talking. I want to keep riding this thing despite how obnoxious that exhaust is. So see you later.